The people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who really do. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955 in California. His natural parents did not want to parent him, so they gave him up for adoption. His new parents named him Stephen Paul Jobs, and they continued living in California in the area that would later become known as the popular Silicon Valley. Jobs learned about electronics working with his father while they used to spend time at the garage. Jobs didn't like traditional schooling and was very frustrated with the system. In fact, his fourth grade teacher had to bribe him to study and avoid playing pranks. But Jobs did really well in exams, and his school even wanted to give him an extra promotion. But his parents didn't allow that and wanted him to go according to the traditional flow. A few years later, while Jobs was enrolled at Homestead High School, he was introduced to his future partner, Steve Wozniak, who was attending UC Berkeley. After high school, Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Portland. This was an expensive college. He sometimes sold Coke bottles to make money. In order to save money on eating, he used to have food at the Hare Krishna temple. Neither of his parents had gone to college. He felt like he was being a burden on them because college was really expensive. And his parents were not that rich. Steve dropped out of college after 6 months. He then spent the next 18 months exploring different creative pursuits. In 1974, Jobs got employed as a video game designer with Atari. But just a few months later, he left the company and went on a journey to India to find spiritual enlightenment, and even ended up experimenting with drugs. When Jobs was 21, he and Wozniak started Apple Computer in the year 1976. They started this in their family garage, selling off whatever they had, and invested all that money which came from it, which was about $1,750. Seeing their hard work, soon they found a small investment of $250,000 from Mark Markula. $80,000 was in equity and the remaining in loan. Apple I earned the corporation around $774,000. In 3 years, the company's sale increased 700% and the company was valued at about $139 million after Apple II was released. In 1980, Apple Computer went public with a market value of $1.2 billion by the first day of trading. Now Jobs had the funds to set his eye at recruiting even better people, so he tried to recruit John Scully from Pepsi Cola as CEO. The next set of products from Apple, however, suffered design flaws, resulting in recalls and customer disappointment. IBM suddenly surpassed Apple in sales. In 1984, Apple released the Macintosh. By now, the company's executives began to phase him out because they thought Jobs was just letting the company down. Jobs also didn't have an official title in this company that he co-founded, and with his new board trying to push him to the side, he was forced to leave Apple in 1985. So he started a new hardware and software enterprise called Next. The following year, Jobs purchased an animation company, which later became Pixar Animation Studios. Jobs initially invested $50 million of his own money in Pixar Animation Studios. Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles are films that came out of that studio and have collectively netted over $4 billion. The studio merged with Walt Disney in 2006, making Steve Jobs Disney's largest shareholder. Although Pixar succeeded, Next didn't do that well. Apple eventually bought Next in 1996 for $429 million and got Jobs to return as the CEO of Apple. With a new management team, altered stock options, and a self-imposed annual salary of $1 a year, Jobs put Apple back on track when they launched the iMac, which became a huge success. In 2003, it was found that Jobs had a rare but operable form of pancreatic cancer. But instead of immediately opting for surgery, Jobs tried to alter his diet and follow Eastern medication for 9 months. but then later had surgery. This also caused a lot of nervousness among the board of directors at Apple. Apple later released such revolutionary products as the MacBook Air, iPod, and iPhone, which became huge successes. It became $18 billion plus in the bank with zero debt in 2007 and ranked 1 on the Fortune magazine's list of America's most admired companies, as well as number 1 among the Fortune 500 companies for returns to shareholders. Steve Jobs has not been that outspoken in terms of his personal life, although he has been so successful in his professional life. It is known that he had fathered a daughter with his girlfriend when he was 23. Jobs denied paternity of this daughter, Lisa, in court documents, claiming he was sterile. Chrisanne struggled financially for much of her life, and Jobs did not initiate a relationship with his daughter until she was 7. But then, when she was a teenager, she came to live with her father. In the early 1990s, Jobs met Laurene Powell at Stanford Business School, where Powell was an MBA student, and he got married to her in 1991. They continued to live in California with their 3 children. On October 5, 2011, Steve Jobs gave in to the disease and died at the age of 56. Going by what he said, being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night, saying we've done something wonderful, that's what matters to me. And we hope that on that night of October 5, 2011, he went to bed knowing that he's done something wonderful.